this summer, and it turned out quite well. It is likely that will be published next year. Unfortunately, there will probably not be a sequel the following year. Way of Kings was a special case in that it's a book I had already written. The one I had written was not good enough, but I was able to scrap it and start over from scratch. But since I had written it once before, I was able to write it in 4 months, which is a breakneck pace. But again, remember, I'd written this book once before. There were not as many things to figure out, and it turned out really well the second time. But writing a new book in the series would take at least 8 months, and there are not 8 months for me. Towers of Midnight, my goal is to turn in January 1st, the rough draft, and then to revise for 4 months, which is what we did this year to get Gathering Storm. And then I will probably be stir crazy and insane, but then I start on the last book. And I'm not sure how long that's going to take me, because this is just a lot of work. I'm hoping to have that in by January 1st of next year, but I'm not gonna rush it. And so, chances are good that 2011 there will not be a Sanderson solo title. And that's just how it's going to have to be. I should be able to have one for 2012. All right, right up here, standing up.
Would you be interested in pushing the prequel if Eric was interested in?
Okay, excellent question. Someone asked this every time, and I should just put it on my list of things to say at the beginning. He asked, am I going to finish the prequels? Robert Jordan, before he passed away, signed contracts for 5 more books. 2 prequels, 3 books that he called The Outriggers. If you want more information, you can Google it. I don't want to tell you too much because they would be spoilery. I can say the prequels, one was to be about Tam, and one was to be about Morai and Lan and their arrival at the Two Rivers, with the ending with their arrival at the Two Rivers. This is a difficult question to answer because there isn't an answer. We have been very focused on getting the ending done, and we knew Robert Jordan wanted that done. He was also very uncomfortable with the idea of people writing in his world. In fact, he was famous before he passed away. In the early years, people would say, what if you die before you finish the series? He'd say, well, I will leave instructions for my hard drive to be reformatted and burned, so you better hope that I live. He changed his mind the last months of his life, when he knew it was going to happen. That's because he'd been promising you all an ending. The prequels and the Outriggers are a different story. And the last thing we want as a fan, at least that I want to see, is the Wheel of Time turn into the Wheel of Time expanded universe, so to speak, and have dozens and dozens of books. I actually described it once. An interviewer asked me this, and the metaphor popped in my head, which I really like, which is, it's like I've been handed the One Ring. It really is. And the longer I hold on to it, the harder it will be to let go of. And it's better to let go when you're strong and when the series is on a high note. And that has been my advice to Harriet. Now, Tor does have contracts for those. And Tom Doherty, bless his heart, is a huge fan of these books and absolutely loves them. And it's not just because they sell well. He's a very good friend of Robert Jordan's. And he really, really, really wants the Outriggers to be written. A lot. And he's very much a fan. The Outriggers would be about his favorite character. And so he is on one side pushing for him to get done. I have told Harriet, if she asks me, I will do the Outriggers and I will do the prequels, but I will do no more. And I've stated that explicitly for readers, so they have that in hand. And I've actually told her, I'm not going to push you to do any of the 5. I'm not going to say either way. It's your decision. But my advice is to be very careful. And so I don't know what's going to happen. I think there's a chance, but last I talked to Harriet, her feeling was that she wasn't going to do them. And I'm all right with that. And I think that really a lot of the fans, even though it would be excruciating, would be all right with it too. I hope they would be all right with the 5 books if she decides to do them. But I hope that there would be an uproar if someone, wouldn't be Harriet, but many years from now, if someone decided they were going to do another 20 books, about Arthur Hockling or something like that, because we really want this. This is this is the legacy of the great master of epic fantasy in our genre, and I do not want to see it stomped into the ground, even by me, if that makes sense. So, all right here, and what time we got?
2:39.
2:39, okay.
I'm not trying to accuse you of anything.
Yes. Oh, great. I love questions and stuff like that. I don't take a picture, I don't care.
But as a fan, I'm sure that you have favorite characters. Do you ever have to really squash that when you're like, oh, I could just use another scene with so-and-so?
Oh, that's a good question. Do I have, as a fan, do I have favorite characters? And do I sometimes have to ignore that? That's part of the separation of fan and craftsman. The craftsman knows he needs to do what's best for the story. And yet, my influence cannot be helped. It's the work on this book. I mean, if Harriet had wanted to, she could have hired a ghostwriter to imitate Robert Jordan's style exactly, and they could have pretended that the book was finished before he passed away. It had been for 3 years, or at least 2 years. It had been 2 years, and, you know, people would have believed it. They did not do that. The reason being is because, though he left a lot of material behind, as much material written about the world as ended up in the books, is what Harriet says. So we're talking hundreds of thousands of words. Even though he left all that behind, they needed somebody. It was in a state where it was scattered all over the place, and someone needed to turn it into a story. And they came to me and had me do that because they needed an actual writer. They couldn't. You know, people say, why didn't Harriet just do it? Well, Harriet's an editor. Harriet's not a writer. Her job is to take something good and make it fantastic. My job is to get her to something good in the first place. And so my touch, it's going to be on the books. I am not Robert Jordan. If I were to try to imitate his style, I think it would come across as parody. Because, for one thing, Robert Jordan was a master of prose. One of the greatest masters of prose. In fantasy literature, and I am not. My strengths lie in other areas, and I can't imitate his prose. I just can't. I can adapt my prose to be appropriate to the will of time, so I'm doing viewpoint like he did, and doing description like he did. That doesn't mean I can write the words that he would have. And so you will feel my touch on it. Robert Jordan lived through Vietnam. That changed him. I did not. You know, I have a very different life experience, and so you're going to be able to notice differences if you focus very specifically. And so because of that, there are things that I do, and one of the things that I've done is I have focused the narrative a little bit. I think he would have done that himself, but I think I probably did it more than he would have. And I did that by having side characters become involved in main character plot lines, which allows me to use the side characters, but still advance the main character plot. And I'm not sure if he would have chosen to do it that way, for instance. But at the same time, there are a lot of scenes from those side characters that he wrote or had notes on or things that became the things that I used. And so it's not like it's changing dramatically, but it's going to be a filter of my views on it. So there will be times when I choose to use a character that he wouldn't have chosen to use for a given scene. It would have been seen if he'd written it from someone else's viewpoint. And I don't really spend a lot of time second guessing that. I say, is the character right? They feel right. If I'm doing that right, then I'm okay.
Can I just ask you
yeah.
who your favorite characters are as a fan?
As a fan, my favorite characters changed depending on which read of the series and how old I was. I mean, it's been 18 years, 19 years now. When I first read the books, it was Rand. I mean, how can you not be, you know, he's the hero. He's following the hero's journey. If you're a 16-year-old boy reading these books, it's going to be Rand. But, you know, Matt steals the show in the later books. He just does. And so you can't help but love Matt. But Perrin, I felt, was most like me. When I read through the books the latest time, and I posted this in an interview, I felt that I empathized most with Moiraine, which was strange because I was in a different state of my life. I'm now a father. And I empathized with, when I was a kid, I was like, oh, that Moiraine keeping them down and forcing them to do stuff. And later on, I'm like, no, you stupid kids, listen to Moiraine. Rand, no, you're a stupid kid, listen to her. She knows what she's saying, if that makes any sense. In this book, I really